They say history is written by the winners, but in the case of World War I, many of those who fought for king and country were still forgotten by the history books.
India would be nowhere without the Englishmen. If the British do not win, to whom shall we go claiming equal partnership? The liberty-loving English will surely yield after seeing that we have laid down our lives for them.
In 1914, the Indian Army arrived at the Western Front. It was the first time an Indian army was deployed in a European war.
I write this letter with love in my heart. And yet my heart is heavy in such a way as I have never felt before now. As I waved goodbye to home, the warm wind of the Arabian Sea carried a hopeful song, singing a path to freedom, a soldier for 11 rupees per month, a man with hope, loyalty, love, and purpose. At the beginning of this adventure, we were seduced by the wonders the world had to offer. Every place and person was more beautiful than the last. But warm winds and hopeful song began to fade as Hamare log were driven to a desolate landscape. What I would give to be back in my village in the shade of those banyan trees. For those are my roots. Those roots represent our history. And yet, they tie me to a place on the ground where now I have grown wings and I want to fly. How can these things both be true? For here, these two truths live uncomfortably next to one another, in conflict, and yet inseparable. This, my letter to you.
Almost 1.5 million Hindu, Muslim, and Sikh men served in World War I. Attention was paid to the provision of food and water in accordance with religious beliefs, and a comfort fund was set up to provide supplies that would remind troops of home. None of these efforts, though, could disguise the brutal realities of a war unlike any that had gone before.
I write this letter with love in my heart. And yet my heart is heavy in such a way as I have never felt before now. In this foreign land, the wind carries a sad song. As the rain soaks our turbans, I have looked on as Hamare log die in their hundreds. We arrived 200 strong, now only 40 remain, and as I stand among them, I know we have shared something that others can never understand. But when this war ends, will we still be brothers? Or will our previous lives become our future lives, with paths divided by history, by family, by caste, by religion? And so it is with you. This bond we have is forged by everything we have experienced together, and it will always be part of our history. In this place, these truths live uncomfortably next to one another, reliant on each other, in conflict, and yet inseparable. This, my letter to you.
Between 1914 and 1918, troops were also stationed in East Africa, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Gallipoli. Many injured South Asian soldiers were brought to Brighton for convalescence. Photographs taken here became a well-worn propaganda tool for British recruitment in India.
I write this letter with love in my heart. And yet my heart is heavy in such a way as I have never felt before now. Now, my surroundings contrast my feelings. They help disguise the pain I feel and the wounds that refuse to heal. Just like the trenches, I am given time and space for prayer. Untainted water, food prepared in accordance with my faith. But when you are the master and I the servant, will anyone even remember that we were here? This is your palace, and a reminder of my place. But the barbed wire fences that you build are for me alone, and your borders shall not be crossed without bloodshed. For it is those borders that define our lives together, and our lives apart. Lines are drawn and redrawn between me, you, between caste, between religion, between countries that do not even yet exist. This, my letter to you.
Over the coming years, the prevailing attitude to Britain quickly changed, heralding an end to British rule in South Asia.
Our quarrel is not with the British people. We fight their imperialism. We shall either free India or die in the attempt. We shall not live to see the perpetuation of slavery.
I write to you with love in my heart, yet my heart is heavy in such a way as I have never felt before now. Today, I no longer see myself as Indian, but would you call me British? I inhabit a no man's land between homes. British, Asian. What is that? A label that signifies progress? Or a boundary that has never been erased? We still struggle to define the right to reside. We still talk of strategic alliances and fractured friendships. We still oversee the creation and disintegration of unions. Only now, a different union in a different time. The enemies you fought are our friends, while old loyalties lay forgotten. History, like the Western Front, is a muddy place, a place of confusion, where truths coexist and conflict, where the whole story lies somewhere in no man's land, frozen in time, propagating copies, perpetuating propaganda. Where we want to commemorate or celebrate, there are distortions in these stories that we must not ignore. I do not seek to remember victory over defeat, or friendship over persecution. All truths shall exist uncomfortably together in conflict and inseparable. But they must live and breathe in our memory. This, my relationship to you. This, a conflict with you. This, my letter to you.